to another Tale of Woe. I'm your storyteller Tim, and today we're going to be delving into the Tales from the Yawning Portal. Now, this is a really, really good book. I got it for a Christmas present on the year that we all started playing D&D, and it's really fantastic. It has a whole bunch of maps and basically updated versions of old campaigns that were like in previous editions. And there is one that is not that is well, what's the word I'm looking for? There is none quite so infamous as the Tomb of Horrors, and this is the tale of how my group, being only just finished with the Curse of Strahd, ended up going through the Tomb of Horrors. And it was partially my fault, partially me not really understanding what this thing was. I'd heard rumors about how horrible this thing was, and I'd flicked through it briefly as I got the book, just looking up for ideas, looking for maps. And so what happened was, after the group had come back from Ravenloft and all was well, and they had their wagon and they went to the Yawning Portal Tavern. And I describe this place as it is. It's a large tavern built around this large hole in the center of the building, and you can pay to get into the basket and be lowered down into the hole, and you can go on an adventure. Now, me being the silly person that I was, didn't expect my group to go down the hole. I thought they'd think, oh, that's pretty cool, and then just go on with the rest of the adventure. But no, they wanted to go into the portal of the Yawning Portal. And I hadn't planned for that yet. I had set up a few adventure hooks for them within the tavern itself. I gave like a rumors board or a notice board where they could go, and there would be a few different adventure hooks for them to go to there, one of which they did end up accepting. And there was also a minstrel in the bar who would play a song that would lead into the story of the floating castle and this stone that they were looking for, which was like set up way back. So this was meant to be their next hint, their next step onto that primary adventure. But no, they met up with the bard and then decided to go down the bloody hole. And I didn't have a plan for the hole. So learning the dungeon master credo is that, yeah, the old saying is that you can plan for everything except what your party will do. And so they decided to go down the hole. They wanted to go as far down as it would go. And so basically what I decided was that the further down they went, the further into this book they would go. And they went right to the bottom of the pit, which I know is completely wrong, based on how this thing works. But this is how it was in this campaign because I wasn't prepared. And so they ended up at the bottom, which was the Tomb of Horrors. And so the party went through the Tomb of Horrors. Now, I did fudge quite a few things in this in order, because this place is the predecessor of the Tomb of Annihilation. And the Tomb of Annihilation is no joke. I'm currently helping out another DM who's also a member of my gaming group to run through the Tomb of Horrors, because there is the Tomb of Annihilation, because there is just so much to remember. I'm actually currently playing the character of Yaka, the golden talking skull, which you need to feed a shit ton of gems in order to get rid of. So I'm just sitting there making snide comments, reminding her of things that she hasn't done. If part of the group splits off, I'll take them into another room and do that. But yeah, so as some of you may not know, but for those of you who don't, the Tomb of Horrors was created by a Sirak, who was a incredibly powerful demi-lich, and this one is a proving ground for adventurers. If adventurers are brave enough to get through this, then they are incredibly brave, and they can call themselves true adventurers if they manage to get through the Tomb of Horrors. But this is it's diabolical. A lot of the stuff that it has. Here's just a basic like the map. It's not very big, to say the least. You could probably knock it out in a couple of hours if you had an adventuring group that actually knew what they're doing. But yeah, for the most part, my group never really knew what they were doing. They always went with whatever seemed like a good idea at the time, but it was never ever a good idea. But for the most part, they managed to get through it relatively unscathed, mostly due to my fudging things a little bit to help them out of difficult situations, because we were running on a limited time frame as well, and they didn't really want to have to do this in the next session. But to highlight some of the points that they went through, going through the first area here, there's like this snake pattern, and if you step on like if you follow the snake at certain points, there are pit traps that drop you down into different areas, and if you step on the snake, off the snake in certain areas, it's fine. So there's never any consistency to what's going on. And then you've got this diabolical teleportation trap, which you need to hit the symbols on it like a Simon game in order to get through it. They managed to get through the first part relatively unscathed. Where they ran into trouble was in the cathedral, I believe it's known as. Let me just flick through here. It's basically a room that looks like a church. There's a whole bunch of pews and other bits and pieces, and if you step on, if you go up to the pew, it activates a secret door. If you go through the magical secret door, it actually reverses your gender and your alignment. So Nuru goes up to the secret door. She runs through that secret door. She appears back on the altar as a man and neutral evil, and she looked down, screamed, and bolted back through the door. Shunk, came back through, was back to being herself again. So that was relatively humorous. Probably the part where they needed me to really save them was there is a corridor which you hear a bunch of how is it described? Let me just find it. Bear with me while I look this up. The agitated chamber. No, that's not it. Where is it? Gargoyle layer. No. Sliding block trap. 16 it is. The locked oaken door. Right. So the thick wooden door ahead is heavily bound with iron bars, and there are several locks to keeping it shut. And there is sound beyond. A character who listens with an ear to the door will hear far-off music and happy singing, obviously coming from the other side of the door. No amount of forcing or spell will open the door. The only way to continue northward is with a disintegrate spell on the door, or the door is physically destroyed. It has 100 hit points. So they smash through the door, and then as the door falls away, you hear the sounds of confusion and distress coming from the north. A faint glow, like the smell of flame, shines in the distance. The walls of the passage ahead of you are smooth white alabaster, and the floor is highly polished, smoked grey marble. Now, what that is it's a counterweight trap. So at the end of the corridor is a lava pit, and as they walk forward, it tips the weight and everyone slides into it. Now, I don't think there is actually a way to reverse the weight, if I'm correct, but the way that they did it was using wallflower, and I let them do this. Wallflower, druid shaped into a bird, flew to the far end, and then druid shaped into a cow, I think it was, which was heavy enough to counterweight, and they were able to get back out of it. So that was their one TPK that they managed to escape from. Other than that, it's mostly you got the mummy and laboratory preparation room, and there's also a false crypt in there as well, which is a lot of fun. It's basically where you think a Sirak is, but it's just a hologram, and all the stuff in the room is actually fake. So if they're not paying attention, they can actually think, "Hey, cool, we've reached the end of the adventure," which is what my group did. But what I did do, just to make it simpler for them, was that this area was actually where this mummy was buried, and all the stuff in it was true. Making their way through that, there was like a whole area with poisonous gas, but they managed to avoid that with a necklace that allowed them to not require to breathe in poisonous atmospheres. So they used that, as well as a wind protection spell from Wallflower, and then fighting through against this false lich zombie that they were dealing with, which I thought was quite brilliant. There are the evil faces of the Tomb of Horrors. Let me see if I can find the picture. Yeah, so a Syrax symbol, that one right there. They find one of those at the back of the tomb, and when they leap through it, they spit out at the entrance area. Where is it? Right there. Now that face is at the end, at the beginning, and if you actually go into that mouth, it's a sphere of annihilation. It literally just destroys you. But if you come at it from the opposite angle on the way out, it actually lets you out. So they're being pursued by the Lich, and this is what I thought was absolutely brilliant, because Selena had the Staff of Power that she claimed in Strahd's tomb. One of the abilities it can produce is a wall of force. Once everyone got out of the tomb, she put the wall of force up against the sphere. The Mummy Lord chased after them, goes through, hits the barrier, and gets sucked back through into the sphere of annihilation, is completely destroyed. So they one-hit the boss brilliantly. So I was really, really impressed with the way that they managed to get out of this trap, because I was going to have it that, like, if they stood and fought, that was their own fault. They were going to die, but they managed to run, and they also managed to kill the Mummy Lord. So they only did half the tomb. So the group did everything but this half of the tomb, which was what I gave them. So they did all of that, pretty much, except for that bottom bit. So they managed to get through most of it, and that took them like a good 5 hours of run through. But the fun part was what happened afterwards. So they had stolen the crown and scepter from a Sirak's throne. Now, well, he wasn't known as a Sirak. We knew it was a Sirak, but it wasn't a Sirak, because the Tomb of Annihilation was happening at the same time in Choltz during my timeline. So this was just another Mummy Lord and his tomb at the bottom of the Yawning portal. Anyway, so they went to put the scepter and the crown into Geeve's portable hole. But if you have the scepter and crown, two Vroks, which are these weird bird eagle demon things, come chasing after you to reclaim it, and they're like revenants. They won't stop coming for whoever has the scepter and crown. And so this massive fight on the basket being levered up to the back to the bar went on. And what happened was that Geeve managed to put, I believe it was the crown. So the Vrok that was going after the crown goes into the portable hole. The portable hole was still open on the ground when this fight happened, and a few of them jumped in the basket and started to leave. And Geeve, or I can't remember if it was Geeve or Selena, someone used a firebolt and set off the 50 flasks of alchemist fire that they had claimed from the wagon when they got it. Sets this off, and there is a massive explosion inside Geeve's portable hole. And then he just sealed up the hole. So there's this massive explosion. He closes up the hole. The flames all die down. The rock is disintegrated. It goes back to hell, and most everything that Give had in the hole is also burnt to a cinder. So I said, like, all of his gold is now just one solid lump of gold. All of his wine is burnt away. His stepladder is gone. His wine racks are starting to break. All his wine is gone. So, as spectacular as it was for a solution, it didn't come without its cost. But they did have a very expensive golden scepter and a crown. And then the rest of the group managed to beat off this Vrock. And I had planned for, this is just like skipping way ahead. I had planned for this Vrock to show up right at the very end of the campaign, because they never did give back the scepter or crown, and it was still after it. But due to my shit memory, during the final fight, I completely forgot about it. This is going to be one of those weird out of the blue moments. Yeah. So that was my first use of the Tales of the Yawning Portal, but it would not be the last. This is actually coming in quite handy in the current campaign. Yeah. So I will see you all next time in Tales of Woe, where I will explain how my party managed to essentially end the world in 2 sessions. So, stay tuned. Bye.